you. Thank you. And thanks, Don. What Don has not said was he was the one who convinced me that my initial position on Energize East Side and several other things were wrong. So he's actually been instrumental in providing me with a better education. We've got somebody who's still sharing.
Oh, just a moment.
I
need to.
Yeah.
I got it.
There
Okay.
we go.
Okay.
Now I should be able to share. And this will take just a moment.
Kazuki, did you want to start another segment of?
Yes, I already started.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Share. And there we go. So, hi everybody, my name's Randy Grine. I've been doing a number of things, but one of those lately has been working on the East King County PUD. We're trying to get this in front of the public for a up or down vote this fall, and we'll talk about this. So, big things about it is, and we'll keep hitting these points, it's all about local control, getting cleaner energy, and overall a better value. So what is an electrical utility? A lot of people, and I'm surprised, a lot of people don't really know what a utility is. And it's because we don't think about it. And the entire definition of a utility is something you're not supposed to have to think about it. It's just always on. But an electric utility is an organization that owns the infrastructure, some of the nice infrastructure you see here. The wires people aren't too thrilled about, but the substation is absolutely essential. And it delivers electricity from generation sources to consumers. So it's everything that is from a local generating facility, a dam or a wind farm or solar farm, to your house. Washington has a lot of different kinds of utilities. Don't pay attention to this too much. There's a lot of information in there, but basically we've got a whole lot of PUDs, a whole lot of different utility districts. The kinds that we have, well, first there's a municipal utility. Tacoma Power, Seattle City Light are examples of that. Then you have public utility districts, and if you have friends in Snohomish County, they have a PUD, and so does Chelan County. Then there are ones that I didn't know about until I got started in this. Cooperatives like Tanner Rec. And finally, there's the one that I think everybody knows about, and that's investor-owned, which is Puget Sound Energy. So a municipal utility is owned by the city, and it's controlled by the city council. It's administered on behalf of the residents like a fire department, and cities can contract with other cities for power. Almost every state allows cities to form municipal utilities, which gives people coming in some way of connecting with it. Public utility districts are owned by the residents of the community or region they serve, so they're a lot like a municipal utility. But voters directly elect the board that runs the utility, and Washington State has a lot of them. Everyone you see here in yellow is a public utility district. Not all of those are for electricity, but most are. And they can provide other services once they are formed. Finally, there's cooperatives. They're owned by their customers. Directors are elected by the customers. They're often small, usually rural, and they're common everywhere. The last one, of course, is what we should all be familiar with, investor-owned utilities. They're owned by investors. They're either publicly traded or, like PSC, they're privately held. They're regulated by the Washington Utility Transportation Commission, which cap the amount of profit they can make and impose safety requirements and others it's not as strict as we'd like it to be. They're also granted franchises by cities. So in theory, Bellevue could say, we're sick of you. We're going to form a municipal utility and you can go away. Of course, PSE wouldn't have anything to say about that. So they try to be nice to Bellevue. So let's talk about PSE now. Some of the problems that PSE has is, first, they're privately held by investment funds in Canada and Netherlands, which means that there's no local address that we can complain directly to the board. They're invested heavily in fossil fuel, not just generation, but distribution and sales for the last 25 years. They're really a fossil fuel company that also delivers electricity, and that conflict of interest is one of the problems that we have with them. They emit more greenhouse gases while generating electricity than every other utility in the state combined. And you'll see that in a graph here in a bit. Reliability has been getting worse for about 8 years, and because they're not incentivized to provide higher reliability. They're incentivized to make profits, and there's no real penalties for, oops, we had you out for 3 days last month. And the surprising thing, or not so surprising thing, is that they're not any cheaper than nearby public utilities. With 1.1 million electric customers, they're big enough that they're able to shape state policy in their favor. And actually, they do a lot of campaign donations. They're a big employer. They're big. They've been increasing the amount of greenhouse gases they emit, while just about every other utility has been declining. And they've used wind generation, but it's been to replace hydropower, and they burn more gas now. So really, PSE is dirty, especially if you think about old coal plants. So in 1997, this is what the fuel mix looked like. 45% of what the area had was hydro, 55% was coal, and there's a tiny bit of gas there. And these icons on the left represent a certain number of different kinds of plant. Peaker turbines, coal-fired reactors, hydroelectric, wind turbines, etc. In 2017, this is what we look like. We've got 33% hydro. Other wind's about 6%. That's almost everything. But coal and gas have actually increased. We're burning more fossil fuels than we did in '97. PSE continues to get dirtier, and here you can compare the two. Hydro is currently 42%, or was 42%. It's dropped to 33%. Wind has picked up 6% of what we're actually delivering. And it's important to recognize that there's a distinction between peak power and what's actually being provided. This is actually what has been provided to the utility. Coal is 38%, which is up 1%. Gas is up 3% to 21%. This is one that I was a little surprised about, but PSE is actually less reliable than it used to be. And it's because the owners have to extract value out of it. They're in it to make a buck, and I don't have a problem with that. But we have no way to enforce our desire to have reliable power. The UTC allows PSE to recover capital expenses, new stuff basically, but not operating expenses, which are employees and maintenance. Those are the things that make a utility more reliable, making sure the trees aren't going to take a line down, stuff like that. PSE has fewer linemen now per customer than it ever has, and outage times and outage durations are on the rise. And we can see that from this chart, which is from their own data. Don't worry too much about what a SAFI is or rolling 5-year SAFI. That's just different ways of measuring the same thing. The important thing is you see the trend, especially in the past 8 years, is up. They're becoming less reliable. They're having more outages per customer. And well, frankly, the guys that own the place, they don't care if your power goes out occasionally. And of course, those outages last longer than they used to. Again, this is from their own data. You see here what the median duration is across North America. It's just about, it's just under an hour and a half. We started out above that, and we've gone up to, well, almost 2.5 hours for an average outage. So what can we do? Well, public utilities are clean. This graph shows what the average for all of the PUDs is. Hydro is 85% of it, and because we have a lot of dams in Washington State. We've got other places we can dam without impacting fish runs, so that's something that's really important to consider. Nuclear, yes, it's problematic, but that's still 6%. Gas is 4%. There's a little tiny sliver of coal left, and wind and solar. City Light, for all the complaining that people on the east side do about Seattle, Seattle City Light's 100% clean. It's 100% renewable energy. Snohomish County PUD is 99% clean. Those are important considerations. Other people are doing this. So when somebody tells you that we can't use renewable energy, they don't know what they're talking about. So what can we do about it? We can't do shareholder activism because PSC is not publicly traded and the owners are out of the country. We could make a trip up to Canada and try to talk to them, but that's unlikely to be successful. Green Direct, a program that allows PSC customers to directly buy renewable power, is tiny and there's a forever wait list. There's another solution there, but that's still not going to be enough. As an investor in utility, PSC is regulated by the State Utilities and Transportation Commission, but they are unfortunately not very effective at regulating except where they must. And the lack of accountability to customers enables PSC to make bad decisions, or at least bad for us, good for them. So the solution is to form a PUD. This map shows the area that has been carved out, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The most important is that this is about 500,000 people, 500,000 customers. That's about the size of the city of Seattle. It's large enough to be useful for self-governance, and not so big that it becomes a problem. The other issue is that there are only 3 points where it connects to the rest of the grid. One up here in the northeast corner somewhere, and then 2 points here on the south end. One around Newcastle, which I think everybody knows about, and there's another one further to the east. So there's about 550,000 residents, 250 to 300,000 customers. I've already talked about where it connects. And this one is interesting. The failed I-1631, the statewide carbon tax, it failed, but in this area, it passed by a margin of 53% to 47%. People are actually interested in clean energy. So this graphic's a little problematic, but it becomes clear with a tiny bit of explanation. This represents how many King County residents there are. This is PSC's other customers. We're a minority right there. This is the rest of Washington State. Now, we get to elect senators, but we're a small part of that pool. We get to elect a governor, same thing. Who makes the decisions here? There's a regulation, there's a regulatory community that puts requirements on PSC, but there's a fund equity managers who literally direct PSC. They have to satisfy the regulators, or convince them that something is a bad idea. And that's where PSC gets their policies. Something else though, they make a lot of political contributions. So campaign contributions go to the governor, they go to the state senate. Now, that's not to say that anybody's being bribed. That's how things work around here. And campaign contributors get more attention than non-campaign contributors. That's just the way of life. So who does PSC listen to? They're not listening to us very much. But a PUD, what it will do is first we'll have cleaner energy. We immediately get access to energy from Bonneville Power. We're able to get not just the hydro, but other green energy that they're putting on, and PUDs get first crack at that. So we can immediately clean up what we're doing. We can also set up our own generating facilities. Hydro, we can do wind, we can do solar, we could do geothermal, whatever makes sense. And the important thing, one of the important things, Don had talked earlier about battery technology. Another interesting one that's actually been in use for some time is what they call pumped hydro, where when there's lots of electricity available, they pump it up a hill. And then when they need that extra boost of power, like at night when the sun isn't shining, they pump it back, they put it back down through the turbines. It's highly efficient, it's well understood, well tested, nothing new. And when you're doing something like this, not new is sometimes a very good thing to have, because we've already run into all the problems that a technology can have. So what it's also going to do is, because they don't have to turn everything into a profit center, the PUD can actually consider things that are going to benefit the community as a whole, like building out an EV charging infrastructure. They can also they can also finally hire enough linemen and other people to keep things under repair. And some of the other utilities, like I believe it was Orcas Island, they went and dramatically cleaned up their lines when they converted, and they stopped having outages almost completely. This thing really works. One of the other things they can do is we can transition home heating from gas to electrical. Because, well, PSC doesn't have any interest in helping you get off of gas because they sell the gas. Instead, people can do what my wife and I did a couple of years ago when our furnace died. We put in a heat pump, and our bill went down. So PSC's been meeting electrical demand increases with additional gas generation. By eliminating 20 to 25% of their demand, their fossil fuel use could drop by as much as 40%. This would have an immediate dramatic impact on our carbon footprint. And as a large new public power customer, we'd be able to ask the BPA to secure federal funds to build more renewable generation and storage to meet our demand, instead of, I think we'll go drill another hole up in Canada and pump some crude out. And finally, this would also encourage other investors, but we could also do it directly ourselves. So there's a lot of options. So here's how we get there. To form a PUD, all we need is a simple majority vote to pass this fall. Only residents in the new PUD's territory get to vote. Only residents in the new PUD's territory can sign the petition. We need 35,000 votes, signatures rather, to get on the ballot, and those have to be from East King County residents. We need them by June. They need to be verified by elections by the 3rd of July. And we actually have to have 27,000 signatures. The Secretary of State says that their figures reliably show that we need 35,000 because there are errors. So with the signatures certified, candidates for the PUD commissioner can file with King County Elections at the same time. And if the voters pass it, those commissioners are immediately seated and get to start the ball rolling. Now, this is the fun part. Engineering studies and rate case studies have to be done before the general election campaign starts. That's about 54,000. That's a small chunk of change, but we believe we've identified sources that money can come from. It's actually well, it's a little more complicated. Don't worry about it, but we do have a handle on that. Here's the two that are important. Whoops, excuse me. We need to recruit good candidates to run for the PUD commissioner positions. There are a number of people that have indicated interest. No, I'm not one of them. I don't have any special expertise in this, but it would be really fun to get started. And elected officials can boost our efforts to get the word out. So what can you do? Sign the petition, volunteer. We can't gather signatures right now because, of course, we're under a no contact order. We will have those again, and we'll need your help. Okay, but you can help with potential partner research and outreach. Trying to get hold of potential partners is not always easy, and you might have ideas that none of the rest of us thought of. You can help manage events and calendar, host an event when we can host events again, and any other skills, photography, videography, non-English language is a big one. I don't know if there's anybody here who has those. And let us know. Here's the website, the email, volunteers@ekc.org. So, one last thing I want to show you, and that is petitions. We can't gather petitions. We can't go out and knock on doors. We can't have table events, nothing like that right now. We're down for 2 weeks at least. But you can actually request your own petition. Go to this website, eastcancounty.org, and there's a link on there that says sign the petition. It is right here. So click on that link, go to sign the petition. We can't do it in upcoming events. You can download and print a petition at home, but it has to be on legal size paper. Easier to let us send you a copy. All it takes is a stamp. And we take care of that. We send you a self-addressed stamped envelope with the petition. Sign the petition, read the directions, have your adult children, your significant other, your spouse, people that you're in contact with anyway, have them sign it, put it in the envelope. Don't lick it, please. Use water and mail it off. We'll get it. And that's the whole story. If we can get enough people to do this throughout the region, not just Bellevue, we can get rid of Puget Sound Energy. Well, except for your gas bill. Any questions?
Okay, just a moment.
So Randy, I'm seeing,
Yes.
hold on a second here.
Okay, I've got you.
Okay, so,
My headphones died.
so some of the questions, there were a couple of us that really felt it was impressive that Seattle City Light and Snohomish PUD have been able to, be clean and PSE's so far behind on that. One comment that came in said, I'm not sure there are any federal funds left anymore to ask for. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, what it is, it's actually ongoing funds for low cost loans. So yeah, there's plenty of that. The Fed loans money all the time. They're right now loaning trillions of dollars to financial institutions to keep the country afloat. This is not a gift. This is a loan. And interesting thing about this, municipal and other government entities like this have a much higher rate of payback than for-profit companies do. They never go bankrupt, or almost never. So they get a lower interest rate. So yeah, it works, and it works quite well. It's the same way that the city of Bellevue takes out a loan for a infrastructure project. They don't put money in the piggy bank until they've got $1 billion to build a new city hall. Actually, it's probably only about 200 million, but they don't do it that way. They take out a low interest loan and pay it off with receipts that they've got coming in.
Okay. Let's see, what was this next one? Somebody wanted to know, how many signatures do you have so far?
That's one of the pieces I don't have, unfortunately. My understanding is it's less than what we want. We've got at least a few thousand, but I don't have an exact figure. And of course, part of the reason that we're behind on things is, Washington State is on the leading edge of COVID. It's been a little frustrating, but on the other hand, I understand when people have had to bow out of gathering signatures because of very real concerns about health risks.
That's true. And earlier, can you speak to, so that everybody, because we were having the discussion earlier about the possibility, is there a possibility that Washington State would provide an extension or a grace period for the PUD group, given these kind of extraordinary circumstances, that they might extend the deadline for signature gathering? That's
a really excellent point, because I keep forgetting about that. I had no idea that that was the case, but it is possible. I think given everything that's gone on, that we're likely to get that kind of extension, but I can't guarantee it, obviously. If I could, I wouldn't be worried about it. But what I can tell you is that this is something that we're going to hit again until we get there. Thurston County got all the way to the election and came up short. They're trying again. And if it takes a second round, I'll be there gathering signatures, getting it on the ballot. But it's not a matter of belief so much as I see the economic sense in this. What people don't understand is that PSE is allowed 10% profit right off the top. Then they're allowed, whenever they have a infrastructure project like Energize East Side, for that capital expense, they are allowed to get a return of 10% on that for life. So as long as that project is there, they get, and as long as that infrastructure is working, they get to bill customers an extra 10%. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, just to put that, put some numbers on it. They're estimating that Energize East Side will probably cost somewhere between $200 and $300 million let's just split the difference and say $250 million. 10% of that each year is $25 million. And how long do they get that? Probably at least 50 years. So if you multiply $25 million by 50,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you realize that what PSE's customers are signing up for, and it's not just us, I mean, it's their entire territory, is signing up to pay over $1 billion over time to put that project in. And if it was really necessary, if this was the only thing that was keeping our lights on, well, that would be one thing. But if it's not necessary, and the data shows it's not necessary, it's just pure profit for a boondoggle. And that's what upsets us.
Yeah, it is interesting that that a for-profit company can end up creating a boondoggle. People think of that as a government thing, but no, it's an economic thing. I guess.
Well, they're sort of they're almost a quasi-governmental thing, because we have no choice. It's a monopoly, so you can't go someplace else for that product. And that product is basically essential for life. I mean, you can turn off all your electricity and gas and see what life is like, and it's pretty rough. So basically, we are a captive audience.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the inaugural day storm in '92. My wife does. We were without power for 5 days. And even though we had gas heat, that meant we had no heat. So much fun.
Oh, gosh. Okay. One of the folks noted, just as an FYI, and it might not matter now, but with the video feed, sometimes they said the connection is, and the audio is choppy sometimes. So just FYI, in case you do this presentation again. Somebody asked, what about non-US citizens? So I'm thinking that they're wondering, what can non-US citizens do to help this effort? Because you said it needs to be registered voters in East King County, correct? That sign the petition?
That signed the petition, yes. And I had, when we still had a table at Crossroads, I talked to quite a few young people who were interested in this. And they were counting up their days, seeing when they were eligible to vote, and they found out that they could sign the petition once they were registered, even though they weren't eligible to vote yet. That's that whole thing we passed to make sure that they could vote in primaries and things. But non-citizens can still help. We need donations right now to keep things rolling. It's a efficient volunteer-led group, but we do have some expenses that we can't do without. Second thing we can do is talk to your friends, talk to your family that are permanent residents, that are naturalized citizens, and ask them to sign. When we get out of this this internment, go out. Yes, internment. When we're no longer protecting ourselves, volunteer. We need, seriously, we need more people to knock on doors, to waive petitions at malls when they open back up. We need people to help organize and coordinate things, and not just here, but it's all the way. If you can see the background, all of that, and Kirkland and Bellevue are really ground zero on this. We're driving it more than anybody else, and we need to get the word out further out. So there's lots of opportunities to help.
Actually, I was really impressed, Randy, that we had at least a couple of people come over from Seattle. Seattle residents cannot sign the petition. But
Yeah.
they were at the meetings saying, you know what, we hate PSE, and this is something we have to do for the future of our planet. This is an environmental issue for us. So we're going to come over, even though we can't sign it. We're going to help you get signatures because this is important for everybody.
You're
Wow.
right. One of the people we had is a union organizer from Seattle. East Side is very low union turnout, I'm afraid, which I'd like to change. Unions are a good thing in the right measure, but he's out here. Not now, of course, but he'll be back again gathering signatures, because that's one of the things he's especially good at, was contacting people. And I got a chance to see him in action, and the guy is on fire. And he's out here, even though he doesn't live in the area, he gets no benefit out of it except the good of everybody.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to say is this idea of getting a petition through the website with a self-addressed stamped envelope. This is new territory as far as I know for petition gathering. You know, it's usually either volunteers going to events and door to door, or sometimes even paid petition gatherers. That's all off the table for us right now. So we're trying something that has never been done before. Don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but just think about this possibility. If you get one of these petitions and you have some friends do it, and then as they're signing, you say, hey, do you have enough other people that maybe you could get some signatures? And then they get this kit and they do it, and then they do that for, if we can somehow make this a little bit viral and really a truly citizen organized effort, because there's really nothing that paid signature gatherers can do right now. So if this model works, it's a brand new world. The other thing that we're actually hoping as a nice silver lining maybe out of this whole shelter in place thing is maybe our state will finally allow signatures to be submitted online. When we get that, then you can actually digitally recruit people, and it's so much easier than putting a piece of paper in front of their face.
It would be a game changer.
It would be. So that's, maybe this can help us get to that point, because nothing else has broken through that dam yet. But anyway, it's kind of exciting. This is a hard thing to do, but there is potential for some sort of almost revolutionary, citizen activism here. So we'll see.
Sunshine kids.
Yeah.
And
So-
I wished I could take credit for this idea, but I didn't think of it, but it's brilliant.
So Randy, there was another question here, the final question that I'm getting more here. It says, you said that other services would be added later. Would one of them be natural gas?
Let me clarify that. I said other services could be added later. People here probably don't know it, but about 25, 27 years ago, there was a huge fight in the States to allow PUDs to lay infrastructure, as in cable, and resell bandwidth to people who provided telephone services, cable, and internet access. It was a huge fight. Verizon was furious. AT&T was going to sue the pants off the state, but it went through anyway. As a result, I have a professional associate over in Shelton who for 25 years has had 100 megabit internet access to his house, except about 10 years ago, it went up to gigabit. I'm still suffering with DSL, which is one of the reasons things go wacky on me sometimes. Not quite enough bandwidth for what we're doing. As far as natural gas, That's unlikely. And I'll tell you why. There's little interest in providing a fossil fuel from the group, but that's completely up to the commissioners. If that is the will of the voters, that's what they'll do. But ultimately, and it's by, I believe, 2045 or 2050, we have to be off of fossil fuels. That's just the bottom line. And as I'd said before, there are two reasons to say, but I want gas. One is the cost. Everybody knows that burning electrons to heat your house is expensive, but a heat pump is not. Adding an electric car and replacing the gas furnace with a heat pump, our bill dropped, what was it, about $30 a month. So, yeah, there's very little strong argument for that. Yeah, and I used to be a cook back in the day, so I know how nice it is to cook on a gas stove. If we want to hand the planet off to our kids and grandkids, we're going to have to make some concessions, and that will be one. I can promise you that cooking on electricity works really well. I do it all the time. We're just going to have to accept that eventually as the price to pay. Most important thing, though, is that you're not going to lose your gas furnace, your gas stove, or anything else right away. When the changeover happens, and it'll be about 3 to 5 years after this is enacted, what will happen is your bill will be split. You will have your electrical bill that will come from the PUD, and Puget Sound Energy will send you a separate bill for gas, the way it used to be about 20 years ago. Now, the smart thing to do is recognizing that this is an eventual changeover, is you're going to go, gee, my range is on its last legs. I'm going to replace it with electricity. You'll do the same thing with your furnace and ultimately your water heater too. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that last one, because that's going to be a technical challenge. I may give up and just hire somebody to do that one. But it will, by doing it over time, you don't have the additional expense because you're just replacing something that's broken or old enough that it's time to replace it. And that's the way to do it.
Okay. So a question that came in asked, what really is stopping us from being able to gather signatures online? Is it a state constitution issue, or is it a law?
It's a legal law. It's a legal issue, and it's fairly high up. The problem is your signature, when you sign something online with a tablet or such, it looks nothing like a signature. Okay, we don't, the technology to assure that I am Randy and I have signed this document on a website, it exists. We do it all the time, but we don't have it encoded in a law yet. So what we need to do is, in all of our free time, we need to work with our senators and representatives, come up with the technical solutions that are going to last more than 5 years, and determine how to write a law that will allow the technology that exists and the technology that will exist in the future to work without being impeded by the law, as well as, and frankly, this is a real concern. You're all aware of what happens in other states with their amazingly primitive voting machines. We can't have that happen because we make a mistake writing a law. We need to make sure that it's transparent, that it's what's called non-repudiable, that it guarantees that I'm me and that I'm actually the one that signed it. it can be done, but it's going to take time and a little bit more interaction between technology and the legislature than we currently have. But we'll get there.
Okay.
In the land of Microsoft and Amazon, you would think that if it happens anywhere, it should happen here. I don't know
No.
if any other state can you can do signature petitions online. So it may be something that we have to lead the way on. So just to sort of give an idea of the magnitude of that challenge, but it's got to come. It really has to happen. So
it will. We're still in the early stages of all this, and I will say, as a technologist, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and what I found is I found multiple ways of doing the same thing with a different product from a different vendor. There's very little that's done that is really new. People keep talking about the cloud as it's a big magical thing. There were 4 waves in quick succession of the same technology that ultimately was called cloud. And it was something that had been done in the 1960s. Virtual machines have been done for a long, long time. And that's, that's the way it works. We're not using high tech, we're using middle tech, because middle tech is reliable, it's safe. And that's what we need to remember. We have to be safe with things like signatures. Otherwise we get scammed by Ohio and the Russians.
The comment just came in that the cloud is really just somebody else's computer.
It is, exactly. And there are so many people in business who do not understand that. They're getting fewer, but.
There was a question that came in and asked, what will happen to, should this pass, what would happen to PSE's current employees?
Oh, well, no, it's interesting, because that's something I was very happy to find early on. First, we're only a portion of PSE's customers, about a quarter of them. And that's a quarter of them in the electrical generation field. Most of them are going to keep going to work. Now, some of them we're going to hire away. You know, the guys in the area that work the lines, that do a lot of the a lot of the electrical planning stuff for here. Not all of them, but we'll hire some of them. Actually, we're going to be it's almost certain that, I keep saying we, but I mean the PUD will be hiring more, because we're short on workers right now to keep things running right. Does that make sense? So they'll either stay where they are and continue working for PSE, or they're very likely to have a job with us.
yeah, and this was a shocker to me. In some of the early meetings, there were PSE employees there, and they weren't spies. They were actually going, yeah, we don't think the company's treating us very well. We think we'd be treated better by a public utility. So we're here to see how we can make this happen. And they tended to be sort of, in the union, sort of like the guys who maintain the wires and stuff like that. So it wasn't high level people or anything, but it was kind of interesting to have PSE's own employees going, yeah, this would probably be a pretty good deal.
Now, I believe I've talked to a couple of higher level PSE people who came in incognito, just based on some of the things they had mentioned. And that was entertaining, but they know what we're trying to do. Absolutely. And there's only so much they can do to stop it. They're not going to do a whole lot until we get it on the ballot, and then the money bucket comes out. Like I said, Thurston County had $4 million dumped on them 8 years ago to $4 million in advertising to stop this. It worked that time. I don't think it would work very well if here and now.
There's a lot of reasons to support. It's funny
Sure.
that this spans political ideology because, of course, it might be a little bit more a left position to be worried about the environment, but to be worried about costs and local control and
Mhm.
reliability, well, that's not a left or right issue. That's really that's people are concerned about that kind of thing.
I find a lot of my conservative friends are extremely concerned about things like local control and
Yeah.
reliability and even cost. They just have a hard time recognizing that yes, a government entity can actually be more efficient than a private one,
Yeah.
and it comes from those things: 10% off the top, and then what is it, about 6 or 8% off of capital costs forever. That's big.
Okay. I'm just doing a time check here right now, guys. It's 8:28. And so I am wondering if anybody else, I don't see any other questions in the chat box at this point. So unless somebody else has got that, I just personally really wanted to thank the two of you for taking the time to put your presentations together, for kind of venturing into this new technology, this Zoom technology with the Newport Hills Community Club. That was a great dry run that we had this today. I know it took a lot of your time. Thank you very much. Kazuki, thank you so much for the work that you did putting this together.
Yes, I want to thank everybody too. Thank you, everybody that participated. If you have anybody that you know of that wasn't able to participate, or if you'd like to relook at some of the information that was presented tonight, these sessions or this session will be busted up, I think, into several pieces and posted on the club's website in the next few days. So that will be available for reference, and please spread the word.